New York City, and talk to the journalist and political analyst Caleb Maupin. Caleb, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
The DHS, Department of Homeland Security, has recently said that political tension in the United States is taking the country by storm. How likely is it that that tension could lead to political violence?
I think the situation is quite serious because there are big divisions within the U.S. political landscape, and our leaders are doing very little to bring the country together. People have questions about election results. There are big differences culturally when it comes to issues related to school children and what they should be taught and what types of things are appropriate and what are not. There's also a pretty clear understanding on a big chunk of the population that they are not interested in maintaining a global financial system. They're more concerned with making sure that there's jobs and healthcare and education here at home. And it seems like the population is very much being whipsawed. They're very much trying to play certain demographics against other demographics so that the Wall Street monopolists can stay at the top.
We've seen recently the act of violence, though it's shrouded in a lot of mystery and might not be exactly as it appeared at the time. The attack on Paul Pelosi by someone who was in his house, he being, of course, the husband of the then Speaker of the House of Representatives. People say that it's disinformation that is creating the atmosphere in which political acts of violence, if that was one of those, are taking place. What do you think of that?
No, I would argue that it's not disinformation that's causing the rise of unrest in the country. It's true information. It's true information about the opioid epidemic that is claiming so many working class lives across the country. It's true information about the inflation that is squeezing working families when they go to fill up their gas tank or they go to the grocery store to buy food. It's true information about our crumbling infrastructure, the fact that the roads are falling apart, the fact that the bridges and highways and power facilities are falling to pieces. It's true information about the demoralization facing the next generation and our very high suicide rate. It's not disinformation that's causing this. It is the truth about the collapse of the United States from within and the decay of the lives of working people. People are upset, they are angry, and our leaders are failing to provide any real solutions.
Do you think this political violence is coming from and might come from one side or the other, or both sides?
Well, on the one hand, there is talk of extremism and talk of violence and such from our elected leaders. But there's also been an attempt to normalize violence on the part of our political establishment. When Will Smith struck the comedian at the Oscars, that was kind of hailed as, oh, he was sticking up for his woman, or he was sticking up for his wife. This was seen as somehow being heroic. Furthermore, the unrest that has swept the country, the protests and the chaos in the streets that preceded the election in which Donald Trump was defeated by Joe Biden, that was glorified by the media. And at the same time that they are promoting political violence and they seem to celebrate horrendous acts like the brutal murder of Muammar Gaddafi in Libya. We saw Hillary Clinton, how she cheered for it. She said, we came, we saw, he died, and she giggled about it. At the same time, they cheer for violence all around the world, and they cheer for some political violence here at home. They're also concerned about this rising level of violence against elected officials. There's the continued hearings about January 6th. So there's a large amount of hypocrisy. They like some violence, and they dislike other violence.
Again, the DHS report indicates that a vast number of Americans think that the government, the state, has overreached itself, and the state's credibility amongst the public is much less than it was according to every poll that is taken. And now we're in a pre-election period. We're always in a pre-election period in the United States. In the run-up to the next elections, are you expecting an increase in political violence, maybe even against individual politicians, government officials, law enforcement, and the rest?
I think there will be an increase in tension, largely due to the fact that the Biden administration is not doing anything to bridge the gap Instead, they are weaponizing the Department of Justice. They are targeting anti-abortion activists. They are targeting people who want peace with Russia. They are using their power as the executive branch to go after people on the other side of the political spectrum. And Tulsi Gabbard and others have called them out for this, that there's increasingly an effort on the part of the Biden camp not to try and bridge the political gap, but rather to intensify things, to intensify the rhetoric against Russia, to continue to demonize people of the political right wing. Before the midterm elections happened, Joe Biden accused a big chunk of the country, who are Republicans and conservatives, accused them of being fascists. And gave this speech before a bunch of American flags. Meanwhile, the Democratic Party has turned on the railroad workers. The railroad workers, were approaching a strike, and the Democratic Party, that claims to be pro-labor, outlawed the strike of the railroad workers and now has proceeded to start demonizing the railroad workers and their unions. And so we see an increased effort to push people into situations where they feel they don't have expression within regular political discourse and through regular political means. People are questioning election results. People are being censored on social media. Their ability to debate and their ability to express themselves at the polls is something that people feel is being taken away. And when people aren't able to vote their conscience and express themselves at the ballot box, when people aren't able to express themselves on social media and are being silenced, often they will turn to other methods. I certainly don't condone that. I favor political discourse continuing in a free and open way. I favor, peaceful methods of change, people voting and participating. But when such means are cut off, people will become desperate. And if you look at the economic conditions of the country, they are becoming more desperate. It's leading many Americans to feel that they don't have the options they would normally have in a healthy society.
Ken, living